Stop, you haven't subscribed to the channel yet. Subscribe now, we have new stories every day. Now let's go.
They say there's a fine line between two of our strongest emotions, love and hate. At one end of the spectrum, there's a love so powerful that someone is willing to sacrifice their life for the one they love. Isn't that what they call eternal love? On the other hand, there's a person who will do everything in their power to satisfy their burning hatred for another, even to the point of self-destruction. Excessive, isn't it? Nevertheless, most married couples swing back and forth between these emotions in their marriage, but not to such extremes in 99% of cases. However, we cross the line under stress, especially if it's followed by an argument. Now, I can confirm this. For me, it's called crossing over to the dark side. My name is Steve Moore. I'm a business manager at Atlas Plastics. Last month, I turned 32, and I've been married to the love of my life, Kay, for 8.5 years. We have 2 sons, Danny, who is 6, and Kenny, who is 7. We live in a large house in the suburbs of Atlanta. We have a bunch of lousy friends who live in the same neighborhood, and most weekends, we end up going to someone's house for a party or a barbecue. Back where we lived when we first got married, I had a lot of friends, but Kay didn't like most of them. They weren't as refined as our current crowd and didn't care what kind of car you drove or how big your house was. They were a solid group who loved to have fun, but always had your back when you needed it. When Kay decided that we needed to move to what she called a nicer place, we had our first major fight. Our house was only 15 minutes away from where we both worked, and our mortgage payments were pretty low. I'm the kind of guy you'd call easygoing, and I care less about the finer things in life, unlike my wife, who's always looking for something better. So when Kay said we needed to move, I fussed about it for a week, and then I thought, what the hell? You see, most things really aren't worth arguing about. Cars, houses, clothes, they're just material things that, in the end, don't define life. So when Kay dug her heels in, I just let her have her way. It wasn't worth the effort to argue with her about it. You can call me a pushover, but I can count on one hand the number of arguments Kay and I have had in the past 8 years. That was until last night. Kay works at an interior design studio owned by one of our neighbors. She works from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m., so she can take the kids to school in the morning and be home when they get off the bus. I, on the other hand, work from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. depending on traffic. I usually get home around 5:45. Back where we used to live, I'd be home and holding a drink in my hand by 5:15. On Tuesday evening, there was an accident on the road, and I didn't get home until almost 6:15. I was a bit tense by the time I pulled into my driveway, but I thought, well, at least I'm finally home and can relax with my wife. I slipped in through the back door and went upstairs to change into shorts and an old t-shirt. As I was coming down the stairs to the kitchen, I heard Kay talking on the phone. Don't worry, Laura, you know Steve. He'll go along with whatever I say. I heard Kay tell her sister. No, he won't get upset, and I think I know my husband a little better than you do. I've thought it all through, and I plan to talk to him tonight after dinner. Yes, I'll call you and let you know what he says. Anyway, I've got to go, girl. I need to finish dinner. Talk later, Kay said, hanging up the phone. What do we need to talk about? I asked, rounding the corner. Steve, you scared me, Kay said when I came into view. Let me ask again, what do we need to discuss that has to wait until after dinner? I asked, pulling a beer from the fridge and sitting down at the kitchen table. Let's wait until after dinner when the boys go upstairs, she said. All right, what did they do this time? I already talked to them about the cart and about not hitting golf balls in the backyard. What else could they have done since Saturday night? It's not about the boys, it's about us. Well, I haven't done anything wrong since I grabbed your butt at Frank's Grill Bar last Friday night. And the only reason I did that was because you looked so sexy in those new jeans. So what did you buy this time? I asked, trying to add a bit of humor to our conversation. That's not what I'm talking about. It's about how we treat each other, she began. Well, baby, you know I love you and I know you love me, so what's the problem? Yes, Steve, you know I love you, she said, holding my hands in hers. But I'm not sure I'm still in love with you. What? I don't understand, Kay, I said, feeling uneasy about where this conversation was heading. If you got something to say, just say it. You're the best and most caring husband in the world and a wonderful father, she said, touching my cheek. But I'm just not sure I feel the same way about you as I did when we got married, Kay said with a worried expression. I'm thinking about a trial separation to figure out my feelings. Kay, I don't understand. When the hell did this happen? Before or after we kissed goodbye this morning? I said, now more than a little concerned about where she was going with this. The shift from love to hate had begun after all. I've been thinking about this for a while, but I didn't want to say anything until I was sure about what I wanted. I don't understand. Where do you want me to go? I asked. Well, I was thinking maybe you could move in with your mother for a little while. Ever since her dad passed, she's been alone in that big house. Maybe she could use some company for a bit. Kay said, as if she were talking to a small child that I was starting to get angry but kept it bottled up. How are you planning to pay for the house and everything else if I leave? I asked, already knowing what was coming next. As you can see, I'm inching closer to the dark side here. Well, you'll still have to pay, but it's not forever. Just until I have some time to figure things out, she said in the most loving and caring tone. I stood up. No. What do you mean, no? Kay asked, surprised. Kay, what part of this don't you understand? No, I'm not moving in with my mom. And no, I'm not leaving my house or my 2 sons. If you need to leave and get your head and ass on the same page, then go ahead and do it. I don't want you here either if you don't love me anymore, as you so eloquently put it. So since I'm such a great damn guy, I'll even help you pack, I said, slamming my beer on the table and heading upstairs to our bedroom. Kay was utterly shocked when I came back down with an armful of clothes from her closet. Put these in the car, and I'll be down with the next load in a minute, I said, tossing them onto the living room couch and hurrying back upstairs. When I came down with another handful, Kay started yelling for me to stop. I thought you wanted a separation. I'm just helping you get your stuff out, that's all, I said to her in a calm voice. At that moment, I crossed the line from love to hate in my feelings for her. Or, as I now like to call it, to the dark side. I want you to leave, she screamed at me. That's not going to happen, Kay. This is my house, and I haven't done anything to you or the kids to deserve being kicked out. Now, if you want to move your stuff down to the basement, I can put it there for you, I said, dropping the second armful of clothes on top of the others. Things weren't going at all the way Kay had planned. Steve was supposed to tuck his tail and lead without saying a word, she thought to herself. He wasn't supposed to make a fuss. Now, damn it, what am I supposed to do? Let's talk about this like 2 adults, Steve, she said. Kay, I think you've said enough. At least now, I know how you really feel about me. So make up your mind, where do you want your clothes? Because you're definitely not staying in my bedroom anymore, I said, doing my best to stay calm. When our sons, Danny and Kenny, came through the door, they wanted to know what was going on. Mom's just moving some of her stuff, that's all. How about we go grab some burgers and let her finish up? I didn't have to ask twice. We left and came back 45 minutes later with food. However, when we returned, there were a few extra people, 2 police officers. Good evening, officers. How can I help you? I asked, stepping out of the car and telling the boys to head inside. We received a call about a domestic dispute and we need to talk to you, the big guy said, keeping his hand on his gun. Noticing his hand, I said, officer, you won't be needing that, and then explained why I had come home. I didn't raise my voice, didn't threaten her or my kids, but I told her I wasn't leaving the house. My name is on the mortgage, I pay all the bills, and unless there's a court order, which I highly doubt, I believe I have every right to stay here. I told my wife that if she wasn't happy with me, she could move out, and I'd even help her pack. The officers both chuckled, clearly amused by my predicament. Kay, to put it mildly, lost her temper when the officers told her there was nothing they could do. However, they assured her they would file a report stating that I was calm and posed no threat to my family or myself. Meanwhile, Kay ranted, raved, and used profanity as she talked to them about her husband. In the end, all I was trying to do was help my wife load her personal belongings into the car. That's all they witnessed. I thanked them, shook their hands, and they wished me luck. Kay was absolutely furious that she didn't get her way. Steve, why don't you just leave and make life easier for all of us? She shouted at me. As I said before, Kay, that's not going to happen. So decide where you want your stuff, in the car or the basement. It's your choice. The boys and I will be eating out on the deck, so think carefully about what you're going to do next, I said, grabbing the food and heading to the deck where my boys were waiting. What's wrong with Mom? Who knows? Maybe she had a bad day at work. Let's give her some space, guys. You know Mom, she'll be back to her old self soon, I told my boys, not believing a single word of it myself. We ate and then watched a special about the X Games being held in Atlanta. Why don't you guys head upstairs? I said to them, I'll come up later to check on you. They went upstairs and I went to find Kay. She left, leaving her clothes on the couch where I had tossed them. I went upstairs and noticed that several drawers were open and 2 of her suitcases were gone. Well, I guess that's my answer, I said, sitting on the bed and wondering what would happen next. Damn, I left behind a loving wife and family at 7:15 a.m., and now, at 9 p.m., I still had 2 sons but no longer a loving wife. Sometimes life really sucks. Mom, I need a big favor, I said, calling my mom. I explained my side of the story and asked if she could come by to make sure the boys got to school on time and were here when they got home. Maybe Kay's hormones just got the better of her. She'll probably come back once she realizes how foolish she's been, but I'll come by in the morning just to be sure. She said that I thanked my mom, but told her I wasn't as confident as she was. I was right. Kay didn't come back on Wednesday or Thursday. She called the boys on Thursday afternoon to say hello but didn't bother to talk to me. I guess I was still the jerk in her eyes. By Saturday morning, I was both worried and angry. You have no one to blame but yourself, I said, starting to beat myself up. If you hadn't been such a pushover all these years, Kay never would have tried to kick you out of your own house. Now she's sulking at her parents' place, telling everyone what an unfeeling jerk I was for not considering her feelings. To hell with her in this Dan house, I said, looking around. I never wanted it in the first place, and it's too big for the 4 of us anyway. Laura, Kay's sister, actually came by on Sunday afternoon to pick up some things for her. Hey Laura, I greeted her at the door. I figured she'd send you to grab some new clothes. You know Kay, it's all about her. She still can't understand why you didn't just hand over the house, the kids, and move out, she said with a smile. I told her you wouldn't go along with it, but she said she knows you better than I do. Guess she was wrong. I should have kicked her out a long time ago, but I decided to keep the peace by saying nothing. Any idea when she plans on coming back? No clue. She's still in her poor meat phase, but Mom's ready to kick her out if she doesn't get her act together. But you know Dad, his little girl can do no wrong. Want to stay for dinner? We've got grilled chicken, baked potatoes, and corn on the cob. Let me grab her things, and we'll see, she said with a smile. The boys were happy to see Laura, and we all had a nice dinner together. She got 2 text messages from Kay, asking where the hell she was but didn't reply. We cleaned up together, and it was around 8 o'clock when she said she'd better head out. Thanks for stopping by. It was nice to see a friendly face for a change. If you need anything, just call. I told my sister she's ruining a good marriage, but all of her friends keep telling her to stand her ground and that you'll come to your senses soon. I told her that's not going to happen, right? Definitely not. But you'd better go before you get into more trouble than you're already in. Laura gave me a big hug, kissed me on the cheek, and walked out the door. Married the wrong sister, I muttered to myself. The next 3 weeks were rough. Mom helped take care of the kids, and while Kay called the boys, she refused to talk to me. However, she sent me 2 long emails about how terrible she felt, how I wasn't supporting her, and a bunch of other nonsense. The only thing that surprised me was that I was no longer invited to the neighborhood parties, but Kay was. I guess they'd already picked a side. The kids were the first to notice and kept asking when Mom was coming back home. I'm not sure, guys. That really depends on her. I'm not stopping her. She's doing this on her own. I told them on Saturday morning while we were grocery shopping. My life began to take a turn. I was walking down the aisle with my 2 sons when someone grabbed me from behind and lifted me off the ground. You're such a whipped kitten, probably still petting her shorts. A familiar voice from the past mocked me. If that's as high as you can lift me, you're still as out of shape as the piece of crap you've always been. What Carol ever saw in you, I'll never know. I laughed. I thought you'd fallen off the face of the earth. What too good for us now that you've got that big house? Randy asked. I've always been too good for you. You just never realized it, I said, hugging him. Good to see you. Catch you later, guys, Randy said as he walked back down the aisle. Was that Uncle Randy? My boys asked, their eyes wide. Yes, that was Uncle Randy, and we better hurry. I don't want to be late for this party. We arrived at Randy's place just after 4:30. Carol came out and gave me a big hug while her girls grabbed my boys and headed to the backyard. Where's Kay? Carol asked. That's a whole other story, I said. Well, I'm glad you and the boys made it. Everyone will be happy to see you, Carol said. And she was right. Our friends treated us as if we'd never left. The kids and I had a great time. At the end of the evening, after everyone had left, Randy and I sat down. They wanted to know what had happened between Kay and me. All I could do was shake my head and tell them I had no idea. We never fought. Damn it, we never even argued, I told them. Maybe that's the problem. I let her do whatever she wanted to keep the peace. Hell, I was getting as much sex as I wanted and thought Kay was happy. Who knows? Carol said it was probably just a woman's thing, but I told her I thought it went much deeper than that. You don't tell your husband you love him but you're not in love with him. That's just empty talk. It never crossed my mind that Kay might be fooling around, but now I wouldn't bet against it. I'm going to keep my eyes open, my mouth shut, and see how this all plays out. No more Mr. Nice Guy. From now on, my kids come first, I come second, and to hell with everyone else, especially my fair-weather neighborhood friends. Every Sunday, Laura came by to pick up new clothes for Kay. She always stayed for dinner, and I found myself looking forward to her visits. On Saturday mornings, I dropped my boys off at Kay's parents' house, hoping to talk to her. But after the first blow-up, it was easier to just drop them off and leave. That way, there were no more confrontations on the front lawn. I went from anger to near resignation before finally sinking into depression. Hell, I felt like a damn alcoholic going through a 7-step program. I even tried getting answers from Kay, sending her weekly emails, telling her how much I loved and missed her, but I got nowhere. Steve, please be patient, my love, she wrote. I just want to work through these nagging issues so they don't come up later. I know this has been hard on you and the boys, but just hang in there a little longer, she said. At least it gave me hope. 3 long months later, while I was washing the Sunday dishes, Laura shot me through the heart. Kay went on a date last night, and it wasn't the first time, Laura said, avoiding my gaze. I told her she was crazy, but she went anyway. I thought you should know, she added, still not looking at me. I didn't say anything. I just stood there, holding a soapy dishcloth as water dripped onto the floor. Did you hear what I said? Laura asked, staring at me. She went on a damn date. Say something, for God's sake, she yelled at me. I was too stunned or shaken to speak or even move. For the first time since Kay left, I thought about my life without her. Sure, I have been angry, yelled, and ranted a few times, but I always believed she'd come back and we'd be happy again. Now, for the first time, I realized it might not happen. Hey Steve, are you alive? Did you hear what I just said? Laura repeated, now pounding on my chest. Snap out of it. Your damn wife is out there sleeping with someone, and all you can do is just stand there. I grabbed her hands, then pulled her into a hug. My eyes filled with tears as I heard Laura start to cry. It's not fair. You're such a good guy, and all she does is use you. It's just not right, she said, holding me tightly. No, it wasn't right, and I finally snapped, throwing the dishcloth against the wall. Damn it all. I shouted just as the kids came into the room to see what all the yelling was about. Dad, what's going on? Aunt Laura slipped on the floor and hurt her knee. That's all, I explained to my boys. Remember, we still need to watch the movie, and we're waiting for you, they said as they headed back to the living room. Laura and I sat on the couch while my boys sat right in front of the projection TV. I'd seen Spider-Man 3 twice, and they'd watched it at least 6 times. We all sat there silently, watching the movie. I'm sorry, Laura whispered, holding my hand. I was in a daze, stuck on the dark side. Mentally, I was planning my next steps, not revenge, but survival. After the movie, I got the kids to bed and walked Laura to the door. Are you okay? She asked. No, but I'll survive. Call me if you need anything or just want to talk, she said, kissing me on the cheek. You know she's an idiot, Laura added as she stepped outside. Call me. On Monday, I took the day off. I dropped the kids off at school, then sat down at the computer. We had 2 Visa credit cards with outstanding balances. I paid off both and closed the accounts. Then I went to the bank and transferred 50% of what we had left into a new account in my name only. They told me it would take 6 business days to remove my name from the existing accounts. I called the HR department at my job and removed K for my life insurance policy for 01K and medical and dental insurance plans that I changed the locks on the house myself, including updating the security codes for the front door and the garage door opener. Then I went to the mall, canceled the cell phone plan that included K, which cost me an extra $250 fee, and started a new plan in my name only. Wait until K tries to use her phone. That should brighten her day. I said with a smile, the first one that had crossed my lips in a long time, that I kept the home phone number the same but left a message on the answering machine directing K to call her parents' home phone instead. That, as usual, the kids ran into the house. "Guys, I need your old house keys. I've changed the locks, and here are your new ones," I said, handing each of them a new key while collecting the old ones and tossing them into the trash can. "All done," I said to myself. And it only took 8 hours to go from being a happy husband to a single parent. I knew the blow-up was only a matter of time. That evening, the home phone rang, and I told the boys to let it go to voicemail. "What the hell are you doing, Stephen Moore? My cell phone isn't working and neither are my credit cards. I need you to call me right now and tell me why you're acting like such a jerk." Kay only called me Stephen when she was genuinely angry. It had taken just 8 hours to push her to the brink, but more than 3 months to lose her completely. Laura called and said she was on her way. "Grab the kids because we're all going out for dinner," she said. She pulled up, ran to the door, and told us all to get moving. "What's the rush?" I asked. "Kay and my parents are planning to come over and have a heart-to-heart with you. So if you don't want to listen to that nonsense, let's go," she replied. That we ended up at Sonny's barbecue. The food was great, and we all had a good time. "You know I changed the locks, right? I figured as much when I heard you canceled her credit cards, cell phone, and insurance. She told my parents that you emptied all the accounts and savings, and that's when Dad got angry. I took exactly half, but only after paying off all the credit cards she's been using for the last 3 months. That girl sure knows how to spend." I thought so, but you know Dad, the Lord and protector of his little girls, even when they're in the wrong, Laura said. "So, what are you going to do now?" she asked. I asked. "Nothing," I replied. "Nothing. Nothing except put this monstrous house up for sale. I've hated this house since day one, and even if we somehow get back together, I want this house gone. You know you can't sell a house without her consent, right?" "I know, but when that for sale sign goes up, all the neighbors will be talking about us," I said to her, grinning from ear to ear. That we were out for almost 3 hours. The kids needed to go to bed, so we finally headed home. "Are you and Mom getting divorced?" the kids asked when I tucked them in that night. We asked Mom, and she said no, but she doesn't live here anymore. "Kids, I can't say yes or no right now. You know your mom and I love you very much, but I don't think she wants to live with me anymore. So we'll just have to wait and see what she decides." I kissed them both good night, told them I loved them, and that everything would be okay. I grabbed a beer and handed one to Laura as we sat at the kitchen table. "You know you can't hide forever, right? And I'm not planning to. She knows where I live and work, so it won't be hard for her to find me," I said. On Thursday, Kay burst into my office at work. "How dare you cancel my credit cards and cell phone?" she began. "And when did you change the locks on the house?" "Hi, Kay, you look great. How have you been?" "I'm doing fine, and the boys really miss you not living with us." "Yes, I've lost a few pounds. Thanks for noticing." I just kept talking, leaving Kay utterly bewildered. "Steve, what the hell are you talking about?" she finally asked. "Just answering all the questions you should be asking after almost 4 months of not seeing each other, that's all. Now, if you want, take a seat and let's talk. But if you're going to yell and scream, I'll have to ask you to leave because, after all, this is a professional office." "Fine," Kay said, sitting down across from my desk. "Why did you do all that last week? Why did you start dating? Aren't we still married, or did I miss something?" I asked. "It was just dinner with a friend, that's all." "Did you sleep with him?" "No, I didn't sleep with him. It was just dinner, I told you." "Are you planning to sleep with him?" I asked. "Steve, why are you asking me all these questions? I just want to know what my timeline looks like." "What timeline?" Kay asked. "Grounds for divorce," I said to a stunned Kay. "I don't want a divorce, damn it," Kay shouted back at me. "Well, you're acting like you do. Dating, ignoring your husband and kids, buying new lingerie for someone other than me. All signs that you're moving on without us. K, the credit card bills still get sent to the house, so I know what you're buying. It's just unclear who it's for. I told you, I don't want a divorce. All I need is a little time for myself. That's all, she said to me for about the 10th time, but this time, I didn't let her off the hook. How much time, Kay? How much more time do you need? I asked. I don't know how to answer when I don't know myself, she replied. Well, when you figure it out, please let me know. But make it soon if you want to try to save this marriage, I said, standing up. Now, I've got work to do, and I have a meeting in 20 minutes. She tried to kiss me goodbye, but I turned away. She was clearly upset, but she didn't say anything. Laura, do you want to go to a party Saturday night? I asked. Sure, where? Just meet me at the house at 6 o'clock. Dress casual, I said. Randy and the crew were planning a huge adults-only party, and I didn't want to go alone again. We were some of the last to arrive. I thought you said 6.30, I asked Randy. Hank and Ted showed up at 5.30 and got the smoker going, and the girls made potato salad and baked beans. Before I knew it, everyone had already gathered, and by 6 o'clock, the party was in full swing. So don't blame me. I introduced everyone to Laura and shouted, "Let's get this party started," as I opened a beer for each of us before Carol and the other girls whisked Laura away. Who's the chick? Randy asked. Kay's younger sister. Nice. Is she good in bed? Are you out of your mind? She's my Dan's sister-in-law. How the hell would I know? One day, Randy, you're really going to have to pull your head out of your ass. The party felt just like the old days. The beer flowed freely, and the women swapped stories and complained about their men. Every now and then, I glanced over to check on Laura. She looked like she was genuinely enjoying herself. After dinner, the couples games began. First up was 20 questions, 10 for the guys and 10 for the women. Anyone who answered a question incorrectly had to take a sip of beer. It didn't sound like much, but by the end of the night, a lot of us were pretty wasted. The questions were things you were supposed to know about your partner: birthdays, weight, eye color, where you first met, mother's maiden name, and so on. I was shocked when Laura got 9 correct compared to my measly 3. Turns out, she knew me better than I thought. Next came the object passing game between pairs. The larger items were fairly easy, but when we got to the spoon and shot glass, I completely failed. Thanks to all the close physical contact, I got to know Laura and her toned body a lot better. I discovered she was much quicker and more agile than me. I kept losing, which meant I had to take sip after sip of beer. As I said, by the end of the night, I was numb to everything, including the pain. Let me help you get him into the car, Randy said to Laura. I hadn't seen him this drunk in a long time, but I figured he needed it tonight. Do you want me to follow you home and help get him into bed? No, that's not necessary, but thanks for asking. He has a guest room downstairs, and if I can't get him upstairs, I'll just leave him there, Laura said as she headed toward my house. I hadn't planned on waking up at 3:45 a.m., but my bladder had other ideas. I guess you can't drink a gallon or two of beer without paying the price. When I sat up and swung my legs over the side of the bed, my head started pounding. Damn, even blinking hurt. I bunked into my nightstand, the edge of the bed, and the bathroom door frame before finally making it to the toilet. I was about to pull down my shorts when I realized I wasn't wearing any. As I stood there, swaying, I decided to just sit down. 2 quarts later, still half drunk, I stumbled back to bed that I climbed back in and instinctively moved toward my wife. She was naked too. I inhaled the scent of her hair before kissing her bare shoulder and neck. I started to drift off as I nestled against her, becoming more than a little ready. There's no way she wants to fool around at this hour, I thought to myself. Damn, she would sometimes get mad, even if I woke her up just to kiss her. Still with my eyes closed, I felt her pressing against me until I was fully engaged. For the next 10 minutes, we moved together in complete silence. Our breathing quickened, and our heartbeats raised as we neared the peak, finally tipping over the edge. There were no cries, no dramatic thrusts, just gentle caresses. Holding her in my arms, I kissed the back of her head as she softly told me to go back to sleep. Neither of us moved a muscle as we both drifted off. Even with my eyes tightly shut, I could see the light streaming through the windows. My head throbbed, and there was a terrible taste in my mouth as I slowly came back to life. I tried to remember how I got home, but everything was blurry as I pulled her a little closer. I need to go to the bathroom. I'll be back in a second, she said, jumping up and running naked to the bathroom. Even in my half-asleep state, I could hear her brushing her teeth and rinsing her mouth. She hopped back into our bed, not at all gently. If you're expecting any action this morning, you'd better head to the bathroom and do something about that breath. I can smell myself on your face, she said with a laugh. Okay, I was a little drunk, very tired, and maybe my brain wasn't firing on all 8 cylinders, but when I heard her laugh, something clicked. This wasn't Kay. We had separated, and she hadn't been home in over 4 months. I reminded myself as I sat up and looked directly into Laura's eyes. As I said, if you need to do something, you'd better hurry. Remember, you told Mom we'd pick up the kids after lunch, so get moving, she said, shooing me out of bed. While brushing my teeth and washing my face, I kept glancing back at Laura, who was sitting naked on the bed with her knees pulled up and her arms wrapped around them. I pinched myself once and looked in the mirror to make sure this wasn't some kind of crazy dream. How, when, why, I cycled through every word, trying to make sense of how this had happened. Well, when I brought you home, you were pretty drunk. I finally got you inside, and as we started going up the stairs, you slipped, grabbed me, and we both tumbled back down. You thought it was hilarious and started laughing, which made me laugh. You shoved me, I shoved you back, and then we ended up wrestling on the carpet. Out of nowhere, you kissed me, then started chasing me around the house. I kissed you. Well, it wasn't exactly a kiss, Laura said. Anyway, you chased me upstairs and into your bedroom. I told you to get undressed and go to bed, and you said if you were getting undressed, then I had to as well. I thought, what the hell, I'll strip you down, get you in bed, and sneak out once you fall asleep. So you made a deal with me, and a couple of minutes later, you were down to your underwear. And by the way, I figured out you're the kind of guy who prefers boxers, Laura added with a smirk. And then what? I had to nudge her to continue. Well, like I said, you were down to your shorts, and then you just took them off and tossed them onto the pile of clothes. So, I told you to get into bed. You climbed in and pulled back the sheets. Honestly, I thought you'd pass out in a couple of minutes, and in your state, I figured I'd be safe. I guess I was wrong. Well, one thing led to another, and we almost did it. What do you mean, we almost did it? I asked. Well, Steve, you essentially came at me with kisses and a million hands, Laura said with a wide grin. I never knew you were like that, or that you had no boundaries. Kay never shared that little detail with me. Why didn't you stop me? I asked. Your family, for crying out loud. Steve, Kay has been seeing someone behind your back for at least a month, and I figured you deserved a little revenge. Besides, I've always liked you, and I wanted to find out how good you are in bed, and I wasn't disappointed. You're saying we actually did it last night. I wish. You were pretty drunk, and when you flipped me onto my back. I didn't expect you to be so gentle. Not that I'm complaining, she said, running her finger across my lips. Well, lover boy, at one point, you pulled me back up, and before I could even catch my breath, you were all over me again. You're very talented, she said, licking my lower lip. I was going to give you the best experience of your life, but when I laid you on your back, you kind of passed out, Laura said, almost pouting. Why didn't you just get up and leave after that? Hell, I wouldn't have even remembered what we did last night. I thought about it, but I was tired and figured you'd sleep until noon. How the hell was I supposed to know you'd need seconds at 4 a.m.? When I felt you pressing against me, I just reached out and, well, damn it, I was ready since last night, so you just went for it. It had been a long time, and it felt nice having you so close. It wasn't wild or crazy sex, but I still enjoyed it. You were so loving and gentle, and if I didn't know you better, I'd swear it was a beautiful dream. Now, I want that hot sex you promised me last night, she said, pushing me back onto the bed. We can't. He is your sister, I tried to say. But my protest went unheard as she pounced on me. Yes, she's my sister, someone I know and once loved, Laura said, kissing me on the lips. Now get your ass up, we still need to shower and pick up the kids. The shower took us quite a while. We kept lathering each other up, but after half an hour, the hot water started to run cold, and we had to put an end to our fun over breakfast. Now that we were both sober, I realized I needed to have an honest conversation with her. Laura, I don't think it would be wise to continue this. After all, I'm married, and Kay is your sister, I said, pointing out the obvious. Listen, Steve, I'll stay in the background, and no one has to know. Besides, how long are you planning to keep up this charade of being married? Until this weekend, I replied. If Kay doesn't come back by Saturday morning, I'm going to a lawyer, I told Laura. I'm not planning to say anything to the kids because my mom is taking them out of town on Friday after school. So by this weekend, I'll at least have an answer. Laura seemed more than a little disappointed with my responses. We picked up the kids and everyone headed home to prepare dinner. It was a quiet evening between Laura and me before she announced that she had to leave. I walked her to her car and paused for a moment before she got in. I leaned in, kissed her briefly, and then she drove away. That evening, my email to Kay was short and to the point. If you're not coming back 100% ready to be my wife and a mother to our children, I'm moving on. Time's up. It's time to make a decision. On Tuesday evening, Kay called and said she was coming back. She mentioned she'd be home Friday and that we'd have the whole night to talk. I was excited, but at the same time, I felt a twinge of regret. The week dragged on. Kay called me every day, and so did Laura. Laura said Kay was genuinely excited to come home and wished us both the best. When I got home Friday evening, Kay was already waiting for me with a glass in her hand that I grabbed her, kissed her, and it felt so strange after 4 months. We ate, we talked, and then we talked some more. We both knew what would happen next. It was as if we were both avoiding it. I was waiting for her in bed when she walked out of the bedroom completely naked. Damn, she was beautiful, and I wanted her so badly. I made love to her gently, the way I had for the past 8 years, and she simply responded to me in return. We both enjoyed it, and I went to the bathroom to fetch us a couple of warm towels, thinking to myself that this wasn't the same Kay who had left so many months ago. Kay, you didn't make love to me tonight, I said to my wide-eyed wife. I don't know who you were thinking about, but it definitely wasn't me. And Kay, after 8 years, I know your body as well as I know my own. Tonight, you should have felt like a virgin, but you're far from that. Your lover must be a lot bigger than me, I said. How long has this affair been going on? And please, don't insult my intelligence by saying it just happened. 6 months, Kay said, avoiding eye contact. But it's over. I broke it off a long time ago, she added with a frightened expression. In other words, the real reason you left was to be with him. Is that true? That's how it started, which is why I needed to be alone to decide who I wanted. So, you've been sleeping with him all these months, and now you expect to come back into my life like nothing ever happened. Like I'm just supposed to say, it's okay, honey, I'm just glad you're back. Bullshit. Steve, did you fool around with anyone while I was gone? Kay asked, what does that have to do with anything? We're talking about how you had a lover for the past 6 months. I just want to know how much of a hypocrite you really are. Well, Kay, there was one time, but unlike you, I was drunk and didn't even know about it until the next morning, I said, getting up from the bed. Now that I know the kind of lying adulteress I'm married to, I can finally make the tough decisions I've been putting off for months. Steve, I came back to you. It's over. I made a huge mistake, and I admit it. I'm not proud of what I did, but I'm asking you for another chance. I love you, and I'm begging you to give me one more chance to make our family whole again. Please. What the hell was I supposed to say to that? No. I need to think about it, Kay, but I can't sleep next to you right now. I'm just so damn angry. Just tell me it wasn't one of our friends or someone I work with, I asked. It was someone I met through work, and it's over, she said for the second time. On Friday and Saturday, I slept in a guest room. It was lonely, but I needed time to make some difficult decisions about the future. We talked all weekend. She told me to ask her anything, and she promised to answer truthfully. I didn't want the details, but I did ask why. At first, it was exciting, and I felt like a rebellious teenager hiding something from her parents. In just 1 week, he gave me more attention than you had in the past 2 years. I just fell under his spell, but it didn't last long. After a while, the novelty wore off, and we were just having sex because it felt good physically. We both decided it wasn't worth it, and neither of us wanted our spouses to find out. So it was a short fling. I realized I made a mistake and wanted to come back to you. By Sunday morning, my mind was overwhelmed with problems, and I needed a break. Dinner at her mother's house was something she had missed all these months. She wore a huge smile, and everyone seemed to be in good spirits, except for her mom, Laura, and me. As we stood up to leave, her mom hugged me, slipped something into my pocket, and whispered for me to call her tomorrow. The next 2 weeks were restless. I was still sleeping in the spare room, and the kids were happy that their mom was back with them. On Friday afternoon, I left home to take care of some errands I couldn't manage after work or in the evening. I turned off my phone because I didn't want to be disturbed. When I turned it back on, there were 12 messages from Kate that I grabbed a beer and was halfway through it when she burst through the door, waving an envelope. "What the hell is this, Steve?" she shouted at me. "What does it look like, Kay? Why did you serve me divorce papers?" "I thought we were going to try again," she yelled. "We almost were, Kay, but back then, it was just the two of us," I said. "Now, there's no hope for the three of us," I told a stunned Kay as she sank into a chair. You see, I was leaning toward giving us another chance because of the kids and all the good times we've had in the past. But 2 weeks ago, something new came to light that made our marriage impossible. I said to her, "How did you find out?" "Nobody knew," she replied. "Does it matter how I found out, Kay? So you were just going to play along like I'm some gullible fool and make me believe it was mine? You're a real piece of shit. You know that, Kay. This shouldn't have happened. I'm so sorry, Steve. I don't love him, only you. We'll take care of it, and then we'll go back to how things were," she pleaded. "He gave me enough money to handle it, so his wife won't find out either." With every word that fell from her lips, she dug herself a deeper hole. "I hope the three of you will be very happy. I love you, Steve, truly. We can get through this, and if you want, we can sell this house and buy another one, and start over somewhere else. Kay, we're finished. Damn it, we've been over for a long time. I just didn't want to accept it. For the sake of the kids, you can stay here until the house is sold or you find another place to live. I'm planning to take the kids with me, but you can see them whenever you want. I don't want anything from you except for you to leave my life," I said. She cried for the rest of the weekend, and when I took the kids, we had a long heart-to-heart talk with them. It wasn't a big surprise to them that we had split up, but they weren't happy about it. After all, she was their mother. We split everything evenly, and after all our bills were paid, I had enough money left to buy a small house in a more friendly neighborhood. Kay really took care of her problem, and I respected her wish not to tell anyone a word. There was still one more issue. You see, Kay's mom slipped something into the pocket of my jacket that Sunday, something that changed everything. I called her the next day to check what she had given me. "I shouldn't be telling you this, but if I don't, you'll never know the truth," she began. "I found something in the guest bathroom the morning after Kay left, and it took me a few days to work up the courage to give it to you." She found a pregnancy test in the trash, and it showed that someone, so to speak, had baked a bun in the oven. Since she was the only woman in the house, and it definitely wasn't her, it could only have been Kay. I didn't want to be the one to tell you, but I thought Kay would try to deceive you quickly. Think about it, this didn't come from me, right? Got it, Mom. I hate to say this, Steve, but I love her so much. "Don't be a stranger," she said, hanging up. That's how I found out Kay was pregnant. It would have probably been better if I had found the test kit myself, or seen a doctor's report, or followed her to some shady motel and peeked through the windows. In the end, it was her own mother who gave it away. The house I found was similar to the one Kay and I had lived in all those years. It had 4 bedrooms, 2.5 bathrooms, and a large courtyard, but no pool. The kids got into the swing of things, and my new assistant became a real lifesaver. You see, after the divorce was finalized, we were all sitting down and enjoying Thanksgiving dinner at Kay's mom's house when the kids accidentally spilled the beans. They were telling their mom, grandma, and grandpa about how the new house was coming along and how each of them had their own bedroom and bathroom. "It's so cool," Kenny said. "Danny has his own room, I have mine, Dad and Aunt Laura have theirs, and we still have one left for when people come stay with us," he said, beaming. "I even got to choose the wall and trim colors," he proudly added. "Kenny, can you repeat that, please?" Kay asked her son. "Your room, Danny's room, the spare room, and someone else's," she asked. "Dad's and Aunt Laura's," he said, as if it was no big deal. "And how long has Aunt Laura been living with you?" Kay asked. "Since we moved into the new house," he said, chewing on his dessert. "Steepin' more." Kay yelled. "Looks like someone found out our little secret," I said, kissing Laura in the kitchen. You know, it was just a matter of time. We never told the kids to keep quiet, and Mom and Dad would have figured it out anyway for my belly, Laura said, rubbing her stomach. So are we going? I said, extending my hand with pleasure. Laura replied as we entered the dining room. It felt like shock and awe during the Gulf War. Kay was beside herself with rage that I was with her younger sister now. Her mom was happy about having another grandson, and her dad was glad he wouldn't have to get used to another son-in-law. And Laura and I were just happy that I think I initially married the wrong sister, but I fixed it before it was too late.
Thanks to everyone who took the time to listen to today's stories. If you enjoyed it, please consider liking and subscribing if you haven't already. Feel free to share your thoughts on the events in the comments below. Take care.